I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it before you answer. If you could trade lives with Elon Musk right now, would you? Most men say yes immediately. I said yes immediately. But then I started actually looking into his life. Not the highlight reel, the full picture. And I changed my answer. This video is about why. A few months ago, I was watching a Musk interview at 1 a.m. I don't even remember which one, but I remember the feeling. This guy wakes up and changes the world. And I'm lying here wondering if I'm doing enough. That feeling, that specific feeling, I think a lot of men know it. That quiet thing in the back of your head that says, other men have figured something out that you haven't. So I did something I normally don't do. I stopped watching his content and started reading about him instead. What I found made me think differently about everything I thought success was supposed to look like. Here's the thing about Musk that I don't think men talk about honestly. We don't actually want to be him. We want what we think he represents: freedom, control, the feeling that your work actually matters, the feeling that you're not wasting your one life. But what if the way he got there cost him the very things we actually want? That's the question I couldn't stop thinking about, and that's what this video is about. Before we get into it, I want to be clear about something. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not diagnosing anyone. Everything I'm about to share comes from Musk's own interviews, publicly reported accounts, and research on what psychologists call high-achieving male psychology. I'm just a guy who went down a rabbit hole and came back with some questions I think every man should sit with. The first thing I noticed when I started reading about Musk: he never stops. Not works hard, not driven. I mean, he genuinely cannot stop. 100-hour weeks. Sleeping on the factory floor. Moving from one impossible problem to the next before the last one is even finished. And I recognize something in that, because I've had periods in my life where I buried myself in work and called it ambition, but if I'm honest, sometimes I was just avoiding something. Musk has spoken publicly about his childhood, in his own interviews, about being bullied severely, about feeling powerless. Psychologists who study this pattern call it hypercompensation. The pain doesn't go away, it just gets converted into fuel. And the engine never turns off, because turning it off means the original feeling comes back. I'm not saying that's what's happening with him. I'm saying when I read about his life, it was the first explanation that made sense to me. And it made me ask, how much of what I call ambition is actually me running away from something? The second pattern is the one that genuinely fascinated me. In 2002, Musk tried to buy a rocket from Russia. They laughed at him, told him it was impossible, kicked him out of the meeting. He flew home, did the math himself, and decided to build his own rocket company. Now, here's what's interesting about that. It's not that he was reckless. His engineers will tell you he understood the physics better than most of them. But he processes risk differently than most men. Where most of us see a wall, he sees a calculation that hasn't been run correctly yet. Researchers call this a reality distortion field. It's documented in published organizational research as a pattern in certain extreme leaders. And I'll be honest, there's a part of me that wants that, the ability to look at something impossible and just not accept it. But here's the other side. The same filter that lets you ignore impossible odds also makes it harder to hear when the people around you are telling you something's wrong. The strength and the blind spot are the exact same thing. This is the part I kept coming back to. Musk has 10 children, and in multiple interviews, including one with the Wall Street Journal in 2021, he's acknowledged how difficult it is to balance his companies with his personal life. One of his children has publicly cut ties with him. His first son, Nevada, died at 10 weeks old from SIDS. By his own account, his response was to go back to work. I don't say that to judge him. I genuinely don't know what I would do in that situation. But I sat with that for a while. Because here's what it made me think. What if the cost of becoming extraordinary is paid by the people you love? And what if they don't get a say in that? The third pattern is the one that affects men who aren't even close to Musk. Men who just admire him from a distance. He doesn't just build companies. He frames everything as a mission. We're making humanity multiplanetary. This is the most important work in history. And organizationally, what happens when you do that is that people stop asking for things. Fair pay, reasonable hours, basic boundaries. Because saying no doesn't feel like protecting yourself anymore. It feels like betraying humanity. Documented accounts from former employees, reported in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, describe this exact experience. Highly capable men, burning out, leaving worse off than when they started. And I thought about how many times I've bought into a version of this. A boss who made the work feel bigger than it was. A goal I attached my identity to so completely that questioning it felt like questioning myself. Inspiration and manipulation can look completely identical from the inside. The only difference is what you find when you stop and actually look. Here's where I landed after all of this. I don't think Elon Musk is a villain. I think he's a man who found a way to convert pain into power. And that power built things that genuinely changed the world. But I also think the version of him that men want to copy isn't actually available for copying. You can copy his schedule. You can't copy his wiring. And the men who try often end up with his exhaustion and his broken relationships, without his rockets. So, after going through all of this, these are the 3 questions I'm sitting with. And I think they're worth asking yourself too. 1. Am I building towards something or running away from something? Both feel the same from the inside. They don't lead to the same place. 2. Are the people around me better or worse off because of my ambition? Not in 10 years, right now. 3. If I stopped achieving for 1 month, what would I have to feel? I asked myself that last one recently, and I didn't love the answer. But I think it was the most honest thing I'd asked myself in a long time. Elon Musk is going to keep building. He's probably not going to stop. And honestly, maybe that's okay for him. But I think the question for the rest of us, the men who admire him, who measure ourselves against him, who lie awake at 1 a.m. wondering if we're doing enough, the question is this the life you actually want? Or is it the life you think you're supposed to want? Because those 2 things feel identical until the day they don't. If this made you think, subscribe, because I'm going to keep asking these questions every week about different men, about different patterns, about the things men aren't supposed to talk about, but probably should. And if you know a man who needs to hear this, not because he's failing, but because he's succeeding in a direction he hasn't examined, send it to him. See you next week.